Hello. Okay, that's gonna be my best German because me, the German accent don't mix. But hey, this is Armando. I am in your comparative literature German love course. Let me just start by saying that I know no German, so if I pronounce names wrong, if I do anything dumb, my apologies in advance. Please don't fail me. Anyway, so I started taking this course in German literature, and it's super interesting because it's all about the notion of love. And growing up, you really don't learn much about Germany and love. I mean, you have Anne Frank, you have the whole World War II, and you don't really understand the concept of love when it comes to Germany because all you ever really learn and focus about is World War II. And although I could go on as a history major about the countless things about World War II in Germany, I'm not. So yeah. Anyway, so when I signed up for this course, my preferred mode of entertainment typically nowadays has been theater, musical theater, plays. Right now, my current obsession is Shakespeare, considering the fact that I might maybe going to London this summer. Anyways, so the only other German things I know are German-based musicals. And so when I was 18, when I say I stan the musical Spring Awakening by Duncan Sheik and Steven Slater, which they basically took Frank Windekin's play and made it into a rock musical, my 18-year-old self was all a quiver with excitement. When I say I traveled all around Texas to see the national tour, I did. When I say I went to New York City several times to see the show before it closed, I did. And in fact, a lot of the friends that I have now all stemmed from that, oh, hey, let's just travel the country seeing a musical constantly about teenagers in love and them killing themselves. Yeah, this is me at 18. Anyways, so other German musicals or German-based musicals that I've seen are Cabaret, which was famous in the 70s because it epitomized and furthered the career of the gay icon Liza Minnelli, which is really cool in the fact that Cabaret deals with the notion of love, but it's super freaking weird, and also deals with World War II Germany, which, again, I'm not going to go down that road on. However, a few years ago, Neil Patrick Harris, he was a doctor on TV, and then became Barney on How I Met Your Mother. That's where I knew him. He does practically a year stint and wins the Tony Award for doing Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Now, Hedwig and the Angry Inch is super, again, weird, as most things we have studied this semester are. However, Hedwig deals with a transvestite from East Germany who falls in love with an American soldier, and then in order for her to marry him, she must come to America as a woman and get basically her genitals removed. It ends up being botched, and he ends up leaving her, this American soldier. And so she's left in a trailer park. She falls in love with a young man named Tommy Gianosis. She basically gets him famous, and he leaves her. However, this whole semester has basically been about love. And every single story I've read has all kind of mixed and matched between Hedwig's journey through her one-night-only concert, quote-unquote, and this final project. I wanted to do something that I really swore I'd never do, but only because I really want an A in this course that I'm doing this, and that is sing. So after all my talking, you're going to see me and my father perform The Origins of Love by Hedwig. However, before we go into that, I'd like to go over this semester. and how it applies to Hedwig and the Angry Inch. So we started out this semester in the first couple weeks reading Sleeping Beauty. Now, most people know Sleeping Beauty from Disney. We all know Disney. We all know that she falls in love with the prince and then ends up basically getting cursed, puts her hand on a spindle, falls asleep for a very long period of time. Prince comes, saves her. So, mind you, this was written a very, very long time ago. If I remember correctly, the medieval times. And to me, where this began my looking at Hedwig was the genesis of Hedwig's relationship with the American general and how Hedwig falls in love with the general, promising candy, promising all this. And much like Sleeping Beauty, it is the genesis of this course, the genesis of love, the genesis of German literature in regards to how we studied it. Super interesting that we do Sleeping Beauty, though, because like Sleeping Beauty, where Briar Rose was waiting for her man to come and save her, Hedwig, as a young boy, is waiting for a man to come and save her. And it just represents the genesis, the beginnings of not only this course, but it truly represents that young idyllic notion of love. Sleeping Beauty, very cool. I knew the story, obviously because of Disney, but it just got better. The next story we read was by Goethe and Schiller. Again, that's the best I can do with German. These poems were terrifying, okay? Freaking terrifying. But like a lot of, I would say, literature back in the day, I want to say that, what was this again? 1700s, 1800s? These poems were severely weird, but it truly showed the evolution of human beings and their way to express emotion and their way to have a vocabulary, just as we in 21st century use Facebook and Instagram to be able to explain things like suicide or mental illness. Goethe and Schiller's poems, they're very interesting in the fact that it's humanity or Germans trying to grasp with notions. And Hedwig and the Angry Inch, Hedwig uses a lot of mythical analogies to explain, why she's in love, or uses mythical stories as she does in Origins of Love. And Goethe and Schiller are using similar mythological patterns to explain happenings within their world. And it really does, again, show the beginnings of not only of how Germans or human beings in general deal with emotions, but it was very comparative to Hedwig and how she begins to discover not only herself, but how does she encounter the world on a daily basis. Next was Werther. Goethe, my man, we gotta talk. There was a very interesting story in Werther that Goethe regretted writing the story of Werther because people were killing themselves, much like Werther does. And Hedwig, in her story, constantly discusses the notion of suicide because she isn't accepted for who she isn't accepted in love. And because of that, Werther and Hedwig have a lot in common because both of them just want to be loved for who they are. Hedwig changes herself completely for a man, while Werther becomes super misogynist and just weird. Werther talking about hanging himself or doing something suicidal is a lot like Hedwig in her show that she used to put her head in the stove. And again, this all goes back to that genesis of not feeling loved, not feeling the right emotions. So yeah, Werther, man, we gotta talk. After that, we studied Die Fledermaus, which is, I'm not a big opera person considering the fact that I'm such involved in the theater, but I do have an appreciation for it, and I didn't know Die Fledermaus before we studied it. This was one of those stories where I really wasn't listening to Hedwig, only till I realized that the malarkey that the characters in Die Fledermaus go through in regards to proving one's love for one another or just being idiots is very harkens back to most relationships in regards to love, is that when you fall in love with somebody, you end up being very silly. Like Hedwig in the song Sugar Daddy, where the lyrics of, come on sugar daddy, bring me home, all this, silliness, Die Fledermaus just takes that to a whole nother level, and sings it in a way operatically that is interesting. Do the characters feel love? Clearly they do. They just want to get away with their own selfishness. After that, we study Spring Awakening. And I can go on for days about Spring Awakening. I can go on for days about how Wendla and Melchior are in love, but they're not in love. How Melchior rapes Wendla. How Hanchen and Ernst are weird but glorious at the same time. And how all that applies to Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Besides the LGBTQ mantras of both stories, there's a lot to unpack. But again, Hedwig's journey of falling in love with the general and falling in love with Tommy Geonosis is very similar to Wendla falling in love with Melchior and Wendla wanting to be with Melchior. In the musical Spring Awakening, there's a beautiful song called My Junk. And in this song, it's the girls singing about how much, they want love. Meanwhile, the boys are on the stage show are masturbating or fantasizing about having sex with their piano teacher. Again, Spring Awakening harkens to Hedwig in the youthfulness, the beautifulness, but it also harkens to Hedwig's downfall, I guess you could say, where her love for the men that she loves ends up costing her a lot. And just like Wendla, quote unquote, in love with Melchior costs her life, or Hanchen and Ernst falling in love with each other causes them to question themselves with each other. Again, I can go on for days. If there was a doctoral degree in regards to everything about Spring Awakening, I could unpack that all here. But I can't. Now, from there, we studied Mac the Knife. Now, being the theater queen, I guess you could say that I am, I knew Bertolt Brecht. Back in the day, with my theater group, we did The Irresistible Rise of Arturo Ui. Brecht is interesting. So, where I compare Mac the Knife, Polly, and all those characters towards Hedwig is, and this goes into the song that I sing later, The Origin of Love. So Mac the Knife and Polly have a very complicated relationship. They love each other. They don't. She loves him. He loves her. He doesn't love her. She doesn't love him. They reject each other. Whatever, right? Like all that tumultuousness. And the fact that Mac the Knife is a very scary character just literally represents the tumultuousness that Hedwig sings when the gods completely separate the organisms that were one being. So in the song, Hedwig, she talks about three sexes where there's two men joined together, two women joined together, and a male and a female organism join together. And the gods get very angry with the human beings because they're getting smarter, because there's two brains, there's two people, all localized within one organism. And so mythology says that we were all split up, and that the gods got even more upset, scattered us all away, and that our constant struggle is to find the missing link to us. And Mac the Knife and Polly are pretty much the missing links to one another. They don't complete each other necessarily, but they could be one part of that organism. But the scattering us away only perpetuates the drama that occurs when we are split apart, when we are, concerned with other notions besides love. And again, that goes back to Hedwig, where when she is all focused within her love to men, she doesn't get what she wants. The next story we read was Lisa and Lotte. And mind you, Professor, when I started reading this story, I emailed you about this, and I said I was literally sitting in a Sobria laughing my head off because I realized that I was watching the original, reading the original story of Haley Mills, The Parent Trap, or in my generations, Lindsay Lohan's The Parent Trap. It was great. Where this applies to Hedwig, though, because there's not really any type of sibling love within Hedwig, Lisa and Lotte are literally one organism when they are within their mother's womb for a while. And that, to me, is literally the children of the sun. No, not sun. Children of the sun. Children of the earth. There you go. The two women, the two girls put together, the one organism. And I was like, oh, I thought of that originally on like an LGBTQ spectrum, but really, truly, like, children of the earth could literally be twins. And they unknowingly spend their life looking for each other. Next was Straight to the Heart. This one was weird. Okay, I don't get it. Like, I understood the story. I got the story. I got the intention in like modern times. There's contracts. Being gay, it's even worse. As I say that I was once in one myself. So Straight to the Heart was super interesting, and how I try to compare this to Hedwig, because I couldn't think of a way to compare it until I finally listened to the whole album of Hedwig and the Angry Inch again for the 80th millionth time. The Hedwig's journey basically goes haywire when Tommy Giannosis rejects her, and she questions her identity, she questions her life, because a lot like Straight to the Heart, Tommy Giannosis, in a unspoken contract, is with Hedwig. And just like Armand and the main character, they're in a contract. And it takes, the protagonist of the story to fake a pregnancy, steal a child, all this extravagance to be able to keep this contract. Hedwig sings Exquisite Corpse about Tommy Giannosis, and is just saddened. She doesn't have many options, also because she can't get pregnant and she can't do much. The next story we read, Cherry Blossoms. I said this in my discussion. This is basically the German Up. Two old people, again, completely shows the children of the earth, children of the sun mentality, how these two people were meant for each other, and how they basically lived for each other. And when one of them passes away, the other one struggles. And again, this harkens back to Hedwig. When she loses Tommy and she loses the American soldier, The Long Grift is a song that she sings, and how she must live the rest of her life in this long grift. And that's how I saw the characters of Cherry Blossoms and the gentleman protagonist, and how he struggles and how he finds quote unquote love with another, and then he dies. It's just sad. Next was Kebab Connection, and this was funny, especially for the fact that there was a lot of Shakespeare in there. And mind you, I don't know Shakespeare outside of English or iambic pentameter, so hearing Germans speak Shakespearean words in German was super interesting. Again, the origins of love. The main character goes crazy trying to figure out whether he's in love or not. Amazing. After that was 3. So at the end of Hedwig and the Angry Inch, she finally accepts her current lover Yitzhak's want of doing drag. She accepts herself. She accepts who she is, and accepts the notion of, loving herself, loving the person she's with. And what's beautiful about that story of 3 was that not only was it weird, but it propagates the notion of accepting oneself and accepting love. And the original Love, the song that you'll hear later, basically ends the musical. There's an animation that you can see online that shows Hedwig's the story that Hedwig is singing in the original Love, and in the end is a complete son, because technically, gender-wise, Hedwig's a male originally, and in the end you see a sun, and you see a moon, you see a complete. And the beauty of where 3 came into play, and what I loved about the fact that this ended the semester, was that it ended the semester on a really beautiful note, that these 3 people found love within each other, and Hedwig finds love within herself and with Yitzhak and with everything. And so what's beautiful about the stories we have read is that the overarching meaning of a lot of it has to do with the notion of love. Sisterly love, love to fellow man, love to the opposite sex, love to the same sex. And it really changed my mindset that Germans were not always Nazis. Germans were not always presented in this negative light. And it really furthered my love for German-based theater, as in within cabaret, when, I saw it with Natasha Richardson in the stage musical, when Sally Bowles, she accepts herself, she accepts the life she's going to have. German literature really ends things on a beautiful note with love, and that people must accept themselves, people must accept each other, people must love one another. And I'm choking back tears. It's really beautiful seeing the psyche of humanity, not only in a truly American UK standpoint, but that love is universal. I'm sounding like a hippie. My mother would be mad. Love is universal. Growing up, I grew up in a very Catholic household, and it seems that a lot of German-based stuff has Catholic connotations to it. And besides Hedwig, I saw a lot of biblical stuff with it, and I'm just really happy I took this class to better understand not only literature in a German sense, but understand that humanity should love one another more. My parents have been married for over 30 years, and I always tell myself that I'll never be as lucky as they are. But this semester, these stories have given me the vocabulary that I need for it, and it's really wonderful to know that. So before I send you to the song of me horrifically singing the origins of love, I'm going to end with the Bible verse. Love is patient, love is kind, does not envy, does not boast. Love is not proud, it does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, keeps no record of wrongs, does not delight in evil, rejoices with the truth, always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. And this class has taught me that love will never fail, regardless of what type of love it is. Well, anyways, I'm going to end this because I'm very awkward about this type of thing. I'm going to end this the way Oasis always ends their concerts and say, well, anyways, here's the origins of love. When the earth was still flat, and the clouds made a fire, and the mountains stretched up to the sky, sometimes higher. Folks roamed the earth like big bowling kegs. They had 2 sets of arms, they had 2 sets of legs, they had 2 faces peering out of one giant head, so they could watch all around them as they talked and while they read, and they never did nothing of love. It was before the origin of love. The origin of love. Well, there were 3 sexes then. One of them looked like 2 men glued up back to back. They were the children of the sun, and similar in shape and girth were the children of the earth. They looked like 2 girls rolled up in one, and the children of the moon looked like a fork shoved on a spoon. They were part son, part earth, part daughter, part son. The origin of love. Well, the gods grew quite scared of our strength and defiance, and Thor said, I'm gonna kill them all with my hammer, like I killed the giants. But Zeus said, no, you better let me use my lightning like scissors, like I cut the legs off the whales, dinosaurs and the lizards. And then he grabbed up some bolts, he let out a laugh, said let's put them right down the middle, gonna cut them right up in half. And then storm clouds gathered above into great balls of fire. And then fire shot down from the sky in bolts like shining blades of a knife. And it ripped right through the flesh of the children of the sun and the moon and the earth. And some Indian gods sewed the wound up to a hole, turned around to our bellies to remind us the price we paid. And Osiris, the god of the Nile, gathered up a big storm to blow a hurricane, to scatter us away. A flood of wind and rain, a sea of tidal waves, to wash us all away. And if we don't behave, they'll cut us down again. We'll be hopping around on 1 foot and looking through one eye. The last time I saw you, you had just flipped to. You was looking at me, I was looking at you. You had a way so familiar, could not recognize that you had blood in your face. And I had blood in my eyes, but I can swear by your expression that the pain down in your soul was the same as the one down in mine. Oh, that's the pain. cuts a straight line down through the heart. We called it love. We wrapped our arms around each other, trying to shove ourselves back together. We were making love, making love. It was a cold, dark evening, such a long time ago, but by the mighty hand of Jove. It was a sad story how we became lonely two-legged creatures. It's a story of the origin of love. That's the origin of love. The origin of love.